Thank you for downloading Gareth Jones on speed. To listen to the new episode, please say yes. There was no real need for you to do that. We just wanted to make you say yes out loud on a train. He. Naughty robot. Gareth Jones on speed.
Hello, I'm Gareth, he's Richard.
Hello.
He's Zog.
Hello.
And welcome to Gareth Jones on speed. It's nice to have all three of us together, safe and sound, in the hood because of the riots. I don't know if you guys were troubled by the riots at all. Actually, the Hackney riots were less than a mile from here, pretty close. I was out of town at the time, but I saw it on TV. And do you know what upset me most about the riots? At one point there was a car turned upside down, burning. Frightening image, horrible. It was a Nissan Micra. It was. What possible reason could you have for burning a Nissan?
Car, you might torch something a bit more offensive than a Micra.
Yeah, a Micra.
Yeah,
I mean, it's your mum's car, isn't it? You don't want to.
There
was also. I sort of don't want to make light of the riots because of all obvious reasons.
No, you can.
There's an oft-used picture and footage of a Mark 1 Mazda MX-5 on fire as well, which I just found upsetting as well. I mean, apart from anything else, I don't want you to get too serious about it or too flippant. Let's find that middle ground. But
we're famous for that here.
Are we? I missed that memo. But
writing memos now.
I think the fact that anyone's car was on fire, that's somebody's stuff, but also potentially the most expensive thing they own and continue to have to pay for in insurance and fuel and all the rest of it. And it's just been burned to the ground. You will imagine how cross you'd be if your car was set fire to. I remember when the wheels were nicked off my car once, and I was just incandescent with rage. Particularly if you care about cars. Your car is one of the most personal things that you own, and something that you put the most care and attention into.
Although the other side of that is surely that your insurance is going to cover that damage pretty well.
It is. But
whereas if you've been burnt out of your home or something, or you've had the shop that you run has been burnt out, that's a lot worse.
Yeah. No, fine. You live in London, you can always get the tube, and the insurance will get you another car.
Exactly.
But there's something. It
could be a lot worse.
I don't know. I just find it like a gross
affront. It's not good, but it could be worse.
Yeah, exactly. It could be worse.
Speaking of burnt out cars, I was looking through some pictures that I took years ago of the poll tax riots.
Oh yeah.
The day after the poll tax riots, I went into town and just was taking photographs of the aftermath. And when I was looking through these photographs again a few weeks ago and hadn't looked through them for a while, I noticed something that had never actually struck me before. Probably because I didn't know my bodywork of certain cars quite as well as I do now.
Where's this going?
One of the burnt-out shells that I'd taken some quite close-up shots of was a burnt-out 944.
Outrage.
Which I could tell from, so many things. But
outrage. That would upset you. I was upset at the sight of a Nissan Micra, but for you to see a 944, or for me a Lancia HBE or something, or for you, Richard, I don't know, a Morris Marina 1.8 coupe,
no, they can burn all they like. But I don't know. I suppose the thing is that there were some very appalling things that went on in those riots, and yes, people lost their homes and people lost their businesses and therefore their livelihoods. But when I saw the cars burning as a car geek, it was just that sense of, oh God, leave the cars out of this.
Yeah.
Just what have they done to you?
Exactly.
Cars, you almost said it yourself earlier on, that you invest a huge amount, not just financially, but your time and your brain space into the ownership of a car. It's the second most expensive thing you'll ever buy apart from a house. You invest time and money and savings, and you'll forego other things to have this car. And that's why people care about them so much. That's why we're able to make this bloody show, because people care enough. Listen, talking about rioting, okay? Do you want to go and campaign outside Bernie Ecclestone or Sky and say, give us our F1 back? Does that make you angry, the fact that F1 has gone to pay TV, basically?
It makes me want to push a Nissan Micra onto its side and set fire to it.
To
all my previously expressed
Here's a lighter,
beliefs.
mate.
Jeez, no, it's
petrol-soaked rag.
Really disappointing. I think we'll all remember where we were when we heard about London descending into chaos and getting set on fire by those riots. But I'll also remember exactly where I was when I found out. To me, it feels like the BBC have betrayed us. And I think it's well known that when they came to the end of their contract in 2013, they were not going to be able to hang on to the Formula One because it was too expensive for them in a time when they're having to very publicly be seen to save money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that they bailed on the contract early and came up with a sort of half-arsed solution where, oh no, don't worry, the Formula One is still on the BBC, but only some of it. And I feel like they've let us down.
Yeah, I'm a bit split on this because as a fan, I'm gutted they're going to strip out the best of the BBC coverage, essentially. I mean, okay, we're going to get highlights packages, we're going to get what are judged to be the most important races, we're going to get those live, and that's great. And I'm sure the highlights package is going to be really good. But even so, the fact that so many of the races are going to be only live on Sky and you're going to have to pay for the Sky coverage if you want to see that, I hate that. That's not a good prospect. But I can see that if the BBC have got to save as much money as they have, if they have to be seen to be saving money, then F1 is a pretty big chunk of money to target. And
yes.
I can see why. I hate it, but it's sort of...
But the thing is, I work sometimes for the BBC, and as a freelancer, I've worked at the BBC on and off my whole career, so sort of for the past 13 years now. And I would always defend a lot about the BBC, but when you know that organisation from the inside, you know that, by God, they know how to waste money sometimes. And there are other things they do which just are absolutely inexplicable. And one of them is this move to Salford, which I was railing about on Twitter when the F1 decision came out. And they're spending, well, the National Audit Office reckons it's like 877 million over 20 years. The BBC is saying the whole move's going to cost them less than 300 million. There's lots of numbers flying around. It's hard to say.
The BBC move to Salford is not lock, stock and barrel, is it? Many departments.
They're moving Radio 5 Live, for example. Slightly dumb because 5 Live's a news and sport channel. The news, of course, requires them to talk to politicians and things like that all the time. They're going to have to pay for studio time in London anyway to talk to these politicians down the line, because unfortunately most politicians are in London because that's where Parliament is. Something the BBC's forgotten. You'd think they'd know that. They should have asked someone. They're moving kids up there. Well, that's fine. A lot of the news stuff, BBC Breakfast, things like that. I don't know about that, but I don't think
Question
it is.
Time, not News Night.
However,
Question Time goes all over the place. Theoretically, their production office could be anywhere because they go all over the place, and it makes sense. That's the kind of programme that should be moved. But stuff where they have to be, unfortunately, for better or worse, London-centric,
close to this,
leave it in bloody London, because it's like a movie studio saying we're going to move to Boise, Idaho, and it's like, well, no, because the centre of expertise is in Hollywood. For better or worse, it would be like the stainless steel industry in the 19th century saying we're going to move out of Sheffield and we're going to go and move to Surrey just because we feel we're underrepresented in Surrey. And it's like, well, no, everyone who knows how to do stainless steel is predominantly in Sheffield. So stay there, have a satellite down there, nurture talent in Surrey to make stainless steel. Because the truth is, Manchester's a fantastically creative city, and I'm from near Manchester, so this is not like being snotty about the north. There should be more TV made in Manchester, but not for the reasons the BBC thinks. Because the BBC thinks it's underrepresenting the regions. Now, that's absolute bollocks. No independent radio would set up BBC Radio Swindon or BBC Radio Sheffield or any of the tiny catchment area radio stations that the Beeb does that have healthy listenerships but entirely underpinned by the licence fee. Commercially, they don't make sense. But what they do fantastically is serve local areas. That's representing the regions. That's the BBC giving value for money. Not moving a load of shows to Salford because nobody gives a rat's where television and radio is actually made. They just want it to be good and to cater for their needs. I'm sorry, I'll stop now.
We understand your position, and we're sympathetic. But we've got away from your original point, which was that this has a cost implication for the BBC. Moving from London to Salford
is costing many millions of pounds. Now, I would
how many? 33 trips in an orange Salford Van Hire transit box
Salford Van Hire.
Yes, isn't it?
Still going.
Well, of course, they're doing the move, obviously. Yeah, well, they've got the franchise.
In a Luton van.
So this has a cost. The BBC now can't afford Formula One. I'm sympathetic to the BBC, to the position that they're in, because
it's a difficult position, yes.
Well, they were made an offer with Formula One that they couldn't turn down. ITV said, we can't sustain this anymore. We'd rather have the football. We can't sell the advertising. Look, do you want to do a swap deal? That's how it came about. There was a football motorsport trade-off between those two channels, and BBC, if you like, was gifted Formula One and done a superb and almighty, intelligent job of the making of the coverage. It's been wonderful. I am astonished that it's gone to pay TV. Not for the reasons of the BBC's excellence, which I think is spot on.
Well, that's what hurts as well, is the fact that BB have done such a great job and we're going to have that taken away from us for most races.
But the point is that how on earth is it going to pay TV when the model, which the Grand Prix Teams Association, whatever they're called, until very, very recently has been saying, no, the whole business model Formula One is built on is people seeing this. Everyone
free-to-air
has to
TV.
see it.
Well,
and that's how we get this massive support from massive multinational corporations. And that's what F1 needs to sustain it.
Is it not in, whether it's the Concord Agreement or another agreement, is it not in one of the agreements that the sport has to be on free-to-air TV? I think it is.
I think it is. Yeah. Things are about to change regarding that. You know, every contract's negotiable, and there is a change period coming up, an opt-out thing, I think, and that's how this has come about. I never thought it would happen. I genuinely thought, no, it's going to stay with the people, because on a much smaller scale, but in a very similar model, look at A1 Grand Prix, which tried to sustain itself on pay TV and just collapsed after 3 or 4 years. If it had been free-to-air for the first 50 years, like Formula One was, think about it, you know, it would have had its own momentum and kept going.
It would have had a chance, is that what you're saying?
You know that statement that was made recently that Top Gear was closer to the end of its run than the start of its run? Yeah. I think the same thing has just happened to Formula One. Unless it gets back to free-to-air viewing, I think we've watched the end of a period in Formula One, mostly in Bernie's tenure, that from now on it will be in decline.
You may well be right, but if that's the case, it's not happening because it's going to Sky. It's not happening because it's going over to the BBC.
Yeah, good point.
It's entirely to do with other factors.
Well, but to a certain extent. They take it to Sky. They're allowed to maintain that Concord Agreement of it's free-to-air because the BBC retains some of it.
Yeah.
That fulfils that part of the contract.
The letter of the issue.
But only for until 2013. After that, let's say Sky chuckies up for the rest of the money, keeps it exclusively, they'll rewrite the Concord Agreement. That will open the door for broadcasters in other countries to also allow it to go to pay TV. And then you start to marginalise it because it's still very popular in Europe. Much as they're trying to court people in India and China and places like that, and Korea, fundamentally Formula One is still most popular in Europe. And if they start to lose the European TV audience, I mean, it only takes then for a slightly boring season as well. We go back to one of those sort of real processional things where one team dominates, which despite everything with Red Bull, I don't think we've got this season.
Agreed, yeah.
But you end up with sort of processional season, things don't work out, bad rule changes, whatever, dominant team, people start to ebb away anyway. I'm not renewing my subscription because Formula One's boring these days. And then, you're right, you could see Formula One in a decline phase.
Well, listen to this. If I were to ask the three people on this show what we're going to do about F1, are we each now going to pick up something like 300 quid a year to watch the races on Sky, which aren't on the BBC? You know what? You'll struggle to find people more committed to Formula One than us guys. We're typical of the kind of people who keep the sport going. I'm not going to pay for it. I can't. I can't afford it.
I'm going to propose right now forming some little consortium whereby we share the cost of the subscription. How about that?
Well, I agree with you. That's the thing. The thought of not being able to watch the races pains me, but the thought of paying for it pains me as well. Yeah. And I'm starting to wonder about pubs that are showing it, things like that. We'll all meet up and we'll go for a pint.
Football works in a pub.
No, you're right.
You
Formula
can't
One
go and
doesn't
watch
really
F1 in a pub. There's only one Schumacher. It's not going to work.
There
are two Schumachers, aren't there?
But we used to watch F1 in that Italian restaurant.
We did, Monza.
What?
We used to go to an Italian restaurant called Monza in Kensington 15-20 years ago together,
It can work in restaurants, pubs, but it's got to be the right pub.
So,
it was an Italian restaurant.
Forking out for Sky, I don't know. I just think, and I've noticed that I think we're all on what's his flat, Virgin Telly, aren't we? Cable, and they've started sending me flyers saying, sign up for the Sky Sports package. And they obviously know it's too expensive and off-puttingly so. They don't quote the yearly cost, nor even the monthly cost. They say for only 75p a day. And you start thinking, well, hang on a minute, extrapolate that, and that's actually quite a lot of money. Off.
That's £3/4 of £365 a year.
Okay, right, here and now, right, this is the plan. This is the only way we're going to do this. If you're considering signing up to pay for Formula One now, and you listen to this programme, and you're on Twitter, tell your mates, right, do it via any medium you can, right, don't sign up until the night before the first race. Right? They will then drop the price at least 50% for all of us, because and if we do it, we work as one, it's better than a riot. Sir, I bring news from last night's riots.
What is it, Stephen?
Well, the window of our Sky Superstore was smashed, and 500 Sky boxes with full Sky Sports subscriptions were looted.
Oh, excellent.
So that's at least 500 people who'll be watching our Formula One coverage next year.
Well, unless it's a race that's also on the BBC, sir.
Shut up!
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
As you're listening to this, we're probably all on holiday or out of the country, as is F1 at the moment, enjoying its 3-week break. When it comes back, is it going to be an exciting season? McLaren have recently said that they haven't ruled out the championship. That's realistic. Yeah, that's realistic. For McLaren as a team to overhaul the Mega Bulls. You've got your Jake Humphrey Special Edition I Am a Pad there, Richard. Go on, read it out. What does it say?
So we've got the Drivers' World Championship, which we were just looking up to refresh our memories about what's going on. Vettel has 234 points, and his nearest rival in second is Mark Webber, who has 149. So that's an 85-point difference.
That's 4 races.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's 4 races.
With your opponent not scoring.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of complex equations you could do to work out the different probabilities, but fundamentally, Vettel's doing quite well. And then Hamilton, Alonso, Button, Massa, Rosberg. Is Massa? Yeah.
I mean, you have to say Alonso has done very well to get himself that far up the table.
Yeah, well, you know as well.
Fair play to the lad. He's
he looks happy, doesn't he?
Great job.
He looks happy.
He has. Because, you know, Ferrari have improved that car in recent races, and it's looking a bit quicker, but it's really only recently that they've really taken that step up.
And fair play to them. Was it Di Montezemolo or Stefano Domenicali? I forget which one of them said, we don't need Adrian Newey. We have a kind of a strength and depth, the sort of thing McLaren say. But
I don't think they do say. I don't think McLaren would ever sort of lose their dignity enough to say we don't need another bloke, would they? They're a little bit more, what's the word?
Borg. They're like the Borg, the hive mind. They are.
Don't you think any of the teams would have Newey as their chief designer, given the choice?
Oh, yeah.
Ferrari.
He wants to make yachts, really, doesn't he?
You might have said that about Ross Brawn to some extent. And
he hasn't quite worked
his
Look, guys, we're talking about the teams, we're talking about the cars, we're not talking about the fact that Vettel, fair play to him, is having a championship year, really. You know, it's hard to follow a championship year with another championship year. I know he's got the car, but I think Vettel's looking great, and I don't dislike him at all. It's just a bit unfortunate that the others aren't quite as close, or weren't as close before we went to the break, as they should be. But I'm quite enjoying watching Vettel being very, very, very good, really, because he is, isn't he? Really.
Well, it's funny to say about not disliking him, because I didn't dislike him.
No.
I didn't sort of particularly like... Well, I do.
I quite like him.
I'm fond of Vettel. I love his
abilities.
He's got tremendous talent, tremendous speed. Sure, that talent is more oriented toward being able to hang on to the lead of a race rather than fight his way through the field. Yeah. But, you know, no one ever complained about, I don't know, Jim Clark maybe being a bit too good at, hanging onto the lead of a race and not anyone able to take him.
And his English is better than mine.
I do like his personality. I do like Vettel's his sense of humour.
Funny enough, because I'd
got a lot of time for him.
I wasn't sure all that kind of. I'm such a zany guy, and I like Monty Python, and there's a part of me that thought, well, do you really?
Are you trying a bit hard?
This kind of weird. Yeah, yes, exactly. Look at me, hey, guys, let's have a crazy party. And just it all felt like really behind closed doors that perhaps he was just one of those sort of modern generation of young drivers who's so totally and completely focused on driving the car that they're actually almost not a human being with a personality. And then we had Vettel on Top Gear. And all of that stuff that if you saw him being interviewed on the TV and his wit and the speed of his responses to Clarkson
in his
second language, and also he's talking to a professional TV presenter in that presenter's world. He's in the studio where most of the people there are there because they want to go and see Top Gear, so therefore you assume they probably quite like Jeremy. So he's got a massive crowd on his side, and it's his domain, it's what he does for a living, against a guy that it's not his job to be sparkling on chat shows. His job is to drive a car fast, and it is, as you say, his second language. And he was genuinely hilarious, and just came across as a very, apart from anything else, very, very smart guy. But in a way that doesn't just apply to doing the maths on how he can shave another tenth off if he changes the camber slightly on the front of the car.
And he was a lot more comfortable in his skin in that situation on Top Gear than Jensen Button is in a Head and Shoulders advert, for instance.
Oh yeah, well, actually no. Well, yeah. Because Jensen, he's really dropped the ball with this one because it seems to me that Jensen Button, he's maturing so beautifully as a driver right now. He's driving magnificently. That victory in Hungary was wonderful. I just love the fact that he went into McLaren, which was clearly Hamilton's team.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone expected him to be coming out second best, or to be humbled by Hamilton and to have a hard time of it, and to look a bit sorry. And absolutely no way. He's just done a fantastic job there. I love the fact that there are these two wonderful British drivers driving for a British racing team that I love. Jensen's manner with the press, he's wonderful at dealing with them. He's laid back, he's charming, he's smooth. He's got this beautiful, wonderful girlfriend. And then he does that Head and Shoulders ad, which is horrible. It's just...
if you haven't seen the Head and Shoulders advert, go and Google it. Go and look at it now. It'll be there on the Tube of You. But it's
further evidence that every TV advert that is made involving a modern F1 driver is just rubbish. The Schumacher, the Schumacher, because I'm worth it one, dubbed on with somebody else's voice.
Yes.
And,
that was
terrible.
That was L'Oreal.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was.
John Lacey did one of those as well. That was awful. It was really awful.
Back in the 70s, James Hunt did one for Brute with Henry Cooper, who you remember the boxer Henry Cooper was the
horizontal Henry.
Face of
Horizontal Henry.
He was the face of Brute and sort of long-term advert campaign fronting man.
An open-chested, hairy man.
Yes, well, it was the 70s.
Open-chested,
and the Vauxhall Chevette. He also advertised the Vauxhall Chevette.
Hunt did, yes, that's true. He did. And his advert with Henry Cooper is really bizarre because it's James Hunt coming back to his motorhome after winning a race, it seems, and Henry Cooper's sitting there, and you go, "Well done, James." And it sort of goes on in that vein. We go, and there's a girl.
And no one bothered to ask why Henry Cooper.
Yeah, and then exactly.
Well, in an age
weird because
in an age when Eric and Ernie shared a bedroom, you could do this. They were the Ernie and Bert of their day.
There's one thing between a sort of two blokes who are such good friends that they share a bedroom together in the way that Bert and Ernie on Sesame Street do.
Yeah.
And there's been a thing recently how now they've legalised gay marriage in New York. That
when are those two going
to get married?
Yeah.
And
although puppets have no sexuality, they have the puppets don't exist from the waist down.
They really do.
They really don't. Yeah.
But the Henry Cooper advert is worth looking up. I think it's on YouTube still because
he's living with James Hunt.
Well, James Hunt, it's in like a Winnebago. And James Hunt, rather than having a shower, just splashes on some Brute, which sends out a strange message about the brand anyway, but probably one that men can connect with. Lazy man stuff. Have essentially what is called a squaddy shower in some circles. Don't actually have a shower, deodorant, aftershave, whatever. But then a girl appears, and Henry Cooper's just sort of the closing shot. From memory, I may be getting this wrong, is of Henry Cooper sort of beaming genially, as if he's planning to stick around and watch James Hunt rutting some girl. It's really bizarre, but then it was the 70s.
It's a very strong argument that you put an F1 driver in an advert and it's pathetic. It devalues it. It's hopeless. I can counter that with two examples.
Oh, I think I know what you're
Heikki Kovalainen has done some very good adverts for a Finnish
How do you
mobile
know
company.
they're good? You don't speak Finnish.
There are subtitled versions.
Okay.
They're cool. You'll see. I'm not going to blow what it is. It's worth seeing, right? Heikki and his dad.
Okay.
Right? Okay. It's lovely, but best of all, not only the only example, in my opinion, of a really, really, really good advert with Formula One driver in it, but probably one of the best adverts ever made, in my opinion. I saw it again recently. And that was the one which Damon Hill did with Murray Walker for Pizza Hut in the 90s, where Murray's commentating the whole time. Stop it, Murray. We're just out for a quiet pizza.
I think you're a bit biased because it's got Damon Hill in it.
Oh, it's lovely, man.
It was quite a good advert, and Murray Walker really carried it. I still remember that Damon's performance was clunky.
It wasn't bad. I watched it recently. I'm happy with that.
That was not one of the greatest TV ads ever made.
No,
it's my programme and I say it is.
Yeah, those Guinness ads, come on.
They didn't have Damon Hill in them though, did they?
Yeah.
It's the Milky Bar Kid!
The Milky Bars are on me!
Hang on, you're not a kid. You've got a goatee beard. And grey hair. You're Damon Hill.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
And all because the lady loves milk tray.
Oi! What are you doing in my bedroom?
I'm a mysterious suitor, head to toe in dashing black.
Dashing black? That's just an old Arrows racing suit with Mika Salo's name on it. And your hair's not black, it's grey. You're Damon Hill.
Shh, I don't think anyone's noticed.
This is the man who put $1 million on red and it came up black. This is the man who moved into gold just as the smart money moved out. This is the man who left a championship-winning team to go to Arrows. Hang on. This is Damon Hill. Shh. If only everything in life was as reliable as a Damon Hill.
Okay.
Gareth Jones on speed.
Actually, since we're talking about Formula One drivers in adverts, I forgot to mention the absolute worst example, not just the performance and the bad dubbing, but the very product at the heart of it, which eats into my soul. Fernando Alonso, probably my least favourite driver on the current grid.
Probably.
Since Jacques Villeneuve's not
Ever?
there. Ever? No.
Ralph?
I don't hate Ralph. Ralph's a great comedy foil. No,
There you are,
Fernando
see.
Alonso, not so keen on him. As we say, or as I say a lot on this show, terrific driver, respect for that, but I just don't like him.
Fair enough.
What was he
What's he done?
advertising,
He's
Richard?
advertising on television
Yes, Richard.
the Fiat 500 Twin Air.
Hang on. Isn't that the car that you recently spent your hard-earned cash on because you love it so much?
Yes.
And what has that done to your faith in the car? That Nando, Teflonso, what do we call him? Fernando Alonso. Yes.
And how does this make you feel?
If you think you know what word was underneath that beep, then do write in. But
Would you like to lie on the couch and explain how you feel about
holy
this?
mother of God, if you've not seen this advert, then why not ruin your life as well?
Tell me the
have a
advert.
Fiat 500 Twin Air. So,
Tell me the advert. I haven't seen it.
You just quoted a bit of it.
Did I?
Oh, well, unknowingly, because you were talking to me. It's a man you hear speaking, talking about, I do many things. And then it reveals, and it shows him bombing around in the 500. All I can remember is there's one bit where you see it sort of with steamed up windows rocking side to side, and it's meant to imply that he's squiring a lady in there.
getting it on.
And then it reveals that it's Alonso on the couch at the psychiatrist, which is what I thought you were alluding to, you see.
No, not at all. No, I was just...
And it's fantastically badly dubbed.
Wow.
I mean, in an insultingly poor way. And it's advertising my car. Short of getting Nick Griffin to advertise the Jaguar XJR. I can't think of a worse association between somebody I don't like and a product which I love very dearly. My car. I haven't mentioned this on the show before, but a few weeks ago I bought a Fiat 500 Twin Air. It's a fantastic little car. I love it very deeply. We'll talk about it more on the show at some point because I'd love to go out in it and we'll record the great little noise that it makes and the fact that it's congestion charge free in London. It has no road tax wherever you are in the country.
That is
and
pretty cool.
That's
on
a
my
revolution.
street, well, because of this low CO2 official emissions that it has, 95 grams per kilometre, below that 100 threshold, so no road tax, it costs me £200 a year to buy a parking permit to park on my own street for the Jaguar. For the Fiat, it costs just £20.
Nice.
The reason being that parking under the Borough of London, where I live, is based on CO2.
Yeah, they do.
Something that the car doesn't emit whilst it's
They do it in
parked.
Camden as well.
And,
Well, but it's designed to modify your behaviour. That's why they do it.
Modify
And
your car,
they
make it
say-
smaller, more space.
and they try to say that the petrol engine is dead. But here is an example of, if you like, the zenith.
I'm afraid the
of
petrol engine is
technology.
dead because, foolishly, just when we thought we had a saviour on the horizon in the form of this clever new Fiat engine with its electro-hydraulic valve actuation, almost like a Formula One engine, really. It's about as close as you can get to F1 technology in the road, bizarrely.
That's why Fernando advertises it.
But that's the thing. The saviour of the petrol engine, new technology, great application of electronics to control this stuff, finally, which engineers have been working on for years, but now we can do it properly.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, they've chosen to get it advertised by an absolute git, and therefore I suspect
doomed
sales
to
will
fail,
suffer.
yeah.
All right, I will counter that with a similar experience with a car which isn't advertised on telly, but I blagged one for review for this programme recently because, just like you, it's got what I consider to be high-end technology, proper race technology in the car. Mm-hmm. The Peugeot RCZ. I had the diesel version of that car. recently and took it to Swansea and back and up to the British Grand Prix and stuff. We got the whole tent thing in. It's, like a TT in that respect. It's got this cavernous back end.
Well, it's suspiciously like a TT, I would
Oh,
say.
yeah. Some wag called it the oldie TT, which is not the Audi TT, the oldie TT.
Okay.
Work of genius. I haven't driven the TT. I don't know how they compare culturally. But what I liked about this car, my reason for choosing it was it had this HDI FAP engine, and it's got a kind of a sort of cab forward kind of. I could be Anthony Davidson in a 908 going down the Mulsanne Straight if I really imagine myself. Sort of association.
Yeah, I think it's quite a good looking car. I like the roof.
It is a
line.
nice looking car. It is. I mean, yes, a mock, but it looks like a TT. But it only, actually, in profile particularly, because it's much longer, it reminds me a little bit of some unspecified car from the 1930s. It has that sort of long-tail elegance about it.
French.
Yes, like a
well, the guy who did some of the design work, I don't know if he did the interior, the exterior, is a northeasterner. His name is it Keith? Seriously, his name?
Yeah, did we meet him at Le Mans?
I've met him twice.
A Peugeot thing.
Oh, he's a great bloke. I think he may be from Durham or somewhere like that. He's like the deputy head of design. Yeah,
I'm making Peugeot design sound like a secondary school. They don't have deputy heads. He's probably called the sort of junior executive president of design.
They have prefects. He's the design prefect.
He's the head boy of design. He's been there for ages. But anyway, no, he didn't do the interior, I don't think, because most of the interior is just out of the 08 hatchback, isn't it?
I don't think it fits. I think the dash is very different. The seats are certainly different. The steering wheel, I don't think it is.
Definitely the H point, as designers call it, the seat height.
Yeah.
The seat height where is the hip point, because it's where your hip bone would be.
I thought it was hard point.
No, hard point is something else, but hip point is, when it's talking about where the seats are,
right.
The hip point is basically the height of the seat. It's where you put your hip bone, and in coupes they always try and drop the H point, make it feel more sporty.
They feel like you're lower on the road, yeah.
I chose this car deliberately because I had this sort of long-legged run to Swansea and back to do, and I thought, something that's geared for Le Mans would be perfect for that. And I swear I see it as like a baby 908. It has a genuine association. But took it to the British Grand Prix first, and I found it was bogging down. It was really weird. You kind of come out of a roundabout and put your foot down, nothing would happen. This is hopeless. This car's hopeless. And it took me about 2 or 3 days to realise this car produces so much torque. Unbelievable amounts of torque. I forget the figures. 9 billion megatorques.
Ooh, that is unbelievable.
It's quite a big figure. I was driving around in the wrong gear all the time. But most cars that don't produce enough torque would stutter at that point. This thing doesn't. It just sort of kept going but wouldn't accelerate. And it took me a long time to relearn how to drive that car and drive, a gear and a half lower down than that. And you'd have to rev it like I used to work in a quarry. You know those big Terex dumper trucks?
Yeah.
They're huge quarry trucks, not road legal. They used to be, when I was doing this sort of 30 years ago, they used to be two-stroke diesels. If they're rev the hell out of them.
What, you drove those dumper trucks?
No, I was a laboratory technician in a laboratory in a quarry, and I had to go and design aggregate and stuff. In fact, I tell you a story. There were these 2 articulated shovel loaders in a quarry one day. I was given 2 articulated shovel loaders and a corner of a quarry to go and create an aggregate. You need kind of 30 tons of pieces over 8 tons. You need 100 tons of the very fine stuff, and put it all together and create this aggregate for this new piece of road that we're building in North Wales. And so I was given these 2 guys to go and pick out the stuff. So I would ride, you've got the cab, and around the cab you've kind of got this platform, that you can stand on. So I'm standing on that directing the guys, and from around one corner of the quarry comes another one, like a dinosaur with its shovel up like this, heading towards us. And then they lowered, and the 2 of them squared off against each other. We're trying to tip each other over, the drivers, with me hanging on the outside. And it gets worse. The next trick was, "What's this, Gus? You like this?" Yeah? Drove into the quarry side, filled the scoop full of limestone, accelerated backwards at the same time as lifting the shovel. And the result is it does a reverse forward wheelie going back with me clinging on the outside. So, I respect the 2-stroke diesel engine, is what I'm saying. And this little Peugeot, you have to drive it like one of those. It's unusual. I've never driven a diesel like it before. You have to rev the bollocks off it low down. It just seemed completely completely counterintuitive. And it took me a while to relearn how to drive that car, but I loved it, and it got a hell of a lot of attention. Not just ladies as well. Guys, amazing, because it looks like a lady's car in what common parlance people... A lot of those Peugeots that aren't hatches, a lot of women support them. It's the truth, isn't it?
I don't know. I lost interest in Peugeot.
I just wouldn't have said
I do like
I just wouldn't have said that it was a hairdresser's car or something. Sometimes prejudicially called.
I'd like to see if they could do a sort of
coupes,
if they could milk them on success or sort of success by doing a sort of ultra sporty one.
There is a 200 brake horsepower version.
There is,
now.
but what I'm thinking is they should beef up the looks a little bit. See if they can.
Yeah.
I think they've just done a one with a matte black paint job on it.
The asphalt edition. Hey, I know.
Is that what you had? You do know a lot about
No,
this.
I didn't have that, but that's what it's called. I read a little about it. I like this car. I think it's a super car. Bit harsh, the ride. You have to work around the gearbox, but the rest of it was a joy, really. Double bubble. And I'm a
I
sucker
like
for
double
a
bubble.
bubble.
Double bubble is
Absolutely.
good. Double bubble, those sort of rails, what designers would call cant rails, over the the hoops that form the sides of the roofline.
Very
and it's a nice looking little car. I should try and borrow one or something and see what it's like instead of just sneering, because I haven't really. I drove a 508. I think I mentioned this on the show.
They're big, aren't they?
Yeah, big. And there's it's a bit of a curate's egg, that car, because there's some bits of it are quite acceptable. It's not as good as a Mondeo, or probably an Insignia, or an Accord. So essentially you sort of think, well, why have they really bothered? But at the same time, it has got some good bits to it. But it also, it was the... and oddly enough, quite a few people from...
Nice wagon.
Well, I had the saloon in white as well, but quite
very
a few
UN.
people I work with who are into cars and were just friends and stuff. And my wife all kind of went, "Oh, it's a nice looking car." That unsolicited as well, which is rare. That it gets that much praise. I think it's nice enough looking. It had more buttons on the interior than it's humanly possible to use in a lifetime. Some of which I think we have accepted symbols for things now. Traction control is broadly, a skiddy car.
Yeah.
And if you want to recirculate the air, that's a symbol.
There's the
There are all these things that we take for granted. There were buttons in that car. I had no idea what they did, and some of them they look like it's like, oh my god, if I press that, it's going to start sifting rocks. I don't want that. I better not press it. And I haven't got time to get the manual out. And it was weird. And also, it was a diesel one, but it was the powerful diesel. It's a 2.2 from that Ford family of engines that's in the Freelander, and it was in the Jag X type. Has just been put into the Land Rover Defender. I saw news this week.
That technology, it was in the Mini. It was in.
Oh no, that's a different family. That's Peugeot and BMW doing that.
Is that a different
doing
side?
small petrol engines, and Ford and Peugeot do medium-sized diesel engines. Lion, and then the four cylinders are called like Puma and things like that. And
hey, you're
I know this is a bit geeky, isn't it? I'm sorry, but they're all made in Dagenham.
Hey!
And so this 508 had this 2.2 litre engine, this sort of maximum whack trim, which I think is 200 horsepower or something like that.
Yeah, must be more.
Or maybe
must be more.
No, I'm not sure. It's only a 4. You used to put V6 diesels in these things. They can't be bothered anymore because no one really buys them. So they had a powerful 4-cylinder diesel in there, and then it had the world's worst automatic gearbox on it.
Oh, really?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Automatic gearboxes now are so good, and they're almost a dying art because people are going towards these twin clutch things that you can still automate, more efficient. And the traditional auto is either being overlooked or they're going to these sort of ones with 8 or 9, 10, 12 gears on them, and they just think this is unnecessary. And a sort of old-fashioned 6-speed auto box is, when it's done well, by the people still using them. Some Mercedes have relatively few gears, and Jaguar use that ZF 6-speed to spectacular effects. It's a great gearbox because they program it well, and this is what it's about.
With
it's all
diesels.
about software. But it's mostly about the programming. It's about telling the computer in the gearbox to talk to the computer in the engine and to just momentarily cut the ignition when it changes gear, so you smooth out the changes and all these things. Even my Jaguar XJR is 13 years old now almost, and you barely notice the gear changes in it. At the time it was quite advanced and it was electronically connected to each other. And you got into this Peugeot 508, and it was sort of a reminder of what automatic gearboxes used to be like 20 years ago. It's just really easy to confuse it. Oh, what's going on? Oh, you're slowing down. Oh, I better change up. No, not up, I meant down. The last time I had a box like that was an American hire car years ago, where you come up to some lights, and it's almost like the gearbox had
couldn't
forgotten.
decide quite how to do it.
Well, it just forgot that you were slowing down. It just nipped out for a fag. And so suddenly, at the last minute, you'd hear this boom as it suddenly changed down, because it was like, oh, God, you're doing 5 miles an hour and you're about to stop, and I'm in 6th. What am I doing?
Tell you what you got a problem with there. Tell you what's going on here. This is an example, right? The gearbox is not talking to the engine's not talking to the gearbox, and that's the problem. They're both independently very good, they're just not talking to each other. Think about it. Where was the transmission built?
I don't know, but might have been...
It won't be Brighton, will it? No, it'll be in France. The chances are it'll be in France.
Maybe Germany, might be a ZF box. Don't know.
Yeah. The engine was built in Dagenham.
That I do know.
Yeah. Sounded all like that, innit? And you got a French gearbox. You got an engine was talking like this. Don't speak the same language, do they? That's what's that. It's a failure in the relationship between England and France.
Well, that's
what
why
you got there.
so many ECUs are made by Bosch from Germany, because you need a sort of organised kind of person
you can rely on,
to boss everyone around. That's what you want.
Listen, we've got to knock this on the head, guys. We talked for about 3 months for this show, and I know this programme's going to last a bit longer while we all three go away on holiday. But I want to give the last word to Zog. Zog, we've talked about the resilience of German design and the excellence of German design. You've been fighting a war with German design, haven't you?
With a particular... Well, I've been fighting a long, hard, depressing battle with a particular German transmission oil drain plug. Which,
how long has this war gone on?
Mr. Zog, you were not meant to remove the transmission plug oil.
Yeah, I'm thinking you may be right about this. I'm thinking you speak words of wisdom.
Summarise?
I think this is at least 3 months. So I decided that I should change the oil in the transaxle. I checked that I could remove the fill plug, because what you don't want to do is remove the drain plug and then find that you can't remove the fill plug. You can see where that's going. So I checked that I could remove the fill plug. Okay, that's fine. I then get onto the drain plug. Won't shift. So after welding one thing to it, and then the welds weren't very good. I had to teach myself to weld to do this, by the way, and get to weld.
Underneath the car, not in a pit.
This is This is
welding above your head.
This is doing it. In the road, on axle stands, limited space. Yet, not surprisingly, after removing the drain plug, I rounded out the Allen hex hole in the middle of the plug. So I had to kind of get hence trying to weld a socket in there to get a bit of force on there. Broke the weld. I welded a bolt in there and then welded a nut on top of that. Broke the bolt in half. Anyway, I then went back to plan A and got another drain plug socket. Welded it in properly this time, and eventually I managed to get the out. So it felt good. It really felt good.
Can we have a small round of applause away from the microphone?
Thank you.
Well done, Zog.
Yeah.
You've been listening to a much happier Zog.
Yes.
I'm glad you got that done. It's been troubling you.
I'm glad I got that done. I really am. It's been... bugging me for weeks.
Bugging you for weeks. I wouldn't buy one of those again, darling. And you've been also listening to a disappointed Richard Porter. You were happy until Alonso advertised your car, weren't you?
Life, ruined.
Say goodbye, Richard.
Goodbye.
And I'm Gareth. That's it. I was going to play you a tune, but you know what? We haven't got time. So I promise there'll be double bonus extra music in the next episode, I hope, of Gareth Jones on Speed. Thanks for listening.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site or follow us on Twitter, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!